Every day I make a list of what our topics are going to be between you, myself, and Carter, and we send it to each other. Thumbs up. We're ready to go. Locked in. Today we are adding a topic specifically because in between some of our recordings, you were like, "Did y'all talk about Dusty's quote already? I want to say some things." So if I'm long-winded on this, I think Carter and I did like 40 minutes on this morning already. I won't beat a dead horse and make the same points that I did, but I want to give you your opportunity because you're an entertaining man, and I'm curious where you're going to go with this. So let me lay the table for you, Dion. After the Michigan State altercation at the Spartan logo, Dusty May had a jarring quote. His quote was this: "I didn't know there was a tradition where they're shooting a free throw and we aren't allowed to stand at half court. I'm not familiar with that one. Is that a tradition?" If you watch the full video of this quote, my interpretation is he's very sarcastically saying, "F your tradition. We are allowed to do whatever we want to disrupt your tradition." That's my interpretation of it. You are like giddy, excited for this. What's your take on this?
I love this quote so much. I love it even more because like there's also a world Izzo heard this because after the game, Izzo was like, no one messes with our tradition. Where's Trey Holloman? And let Trey Holloman do the kiss the floor thing. So like the back and forth between Izzo and Dusty May, like this is what rivalries are made of. Like I told you this offline. I heard this quote because I saw the video because you can't really see what happens. You just start seeing people like start pushing each other a little bit, which I love that by the way. But I absolutely loved it. But like the when I heard the quote after the game, I was like, oh, this is a guy that just never once considered going to Indiana. Never once did it pop in his head like I'm going to Indiana. This is a guy that's going to be at Michigan for a long time. He knew the tradition. They planned this. He specifically put the people at half court that wouldn't back down from a fight, by the way. And I'm not calling Michigan State out by any means, but hey, Trey Hallman went about 1 on 10, dog. Like where are the Spartan dogs at? Like, where are the Spartan dogs at? Like, I saw some Wolverine dogs that were like, you're not gonna do no push-ups, start kissing the floor. Like, no, you gotta come get me. And Dusty's like, oh, is that a tradition? I didn't know we can't stand somewhere. I thought we're allowed to stand wherever we want on the court. I loved every second of this. When they started pushing each other, I was like, now this is the Michigan that I'm looking. All that Michigan man stuff. It's like, no, we're some dogs. You're not just gonna blow us out and start doing traditions on the court. We respect everything you're doing. Super dope. But at the same time, we can stand wherever we want to stand. Pull up and move me. And if I was Dusty, I would have started standing at half court myself. We're down 17 anyway. Give me a tech.
I'm starting to regret doing this video. Uh, okay, I mean, Cart and I landed on one of your first points at the end of our huge discussion on this, which was like, hey, end of the day, I think both of us are happy this happened because, like, it is a moment that will elevate or advance the rivalry a little bit. We're into a new chapter. Dusty May and Tom Izzo, I was very curious how those two would receive each other this year. And Tom Izzo punked Dusty, pantsed him, embarrassed him. And then after the year, we finally see, okay, Dusty May doesn't like this guy anymore.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now there's a reason for this. That excites me as a Michigan fan, even if their play on the court and the team this year has disgusted me as a Michigan fan. Um, I would just push back harshly, even as a Michigan basketball fan. I do not think the Michigan players in this exchange were the ones with the dog in them. That's not how I interpreted these events at all.
They got that heart. They got dog.
Just don't see it that way. I think this is like the petty troll by them, and Trey Holloman going 1 on 10, to your point, is the guy with the dog in him. That's been
Oh
the
no,
issue all season.
don't get it twisted. I'm not Trigger Trey. I'm not disrespecting Trigger Trey at all. Like Trey definitely has some dog in him. I'm looking at Xavier Booker and them like y'all ain't got nothing to lose. Like
Hey, Book is the one guy who sprinted off the bench to get in there,
that's true.
by the way. It's the
That's true.
fastest I've ever seen him move.
That's true. My fault, X. That's my fault. I did that is true. But like to me, I look at this like I compare it to the Michigan Ohio State football game. You got punked. They wanted to do something at midfield, but you chose to get your get back after the game. Yada yada. It turned into something it shouldn't have turned into, right? Like I think everybody can agree on that with the Michigan Ohio State stuff. This didn't turn into something it didn't need to turn into. Um, like cooler heads prevailed. It was very much so a basketball scuffle. I'm the king of these basketball scuffles, couple pushes, and then you run back to the bench a little bit, pretend you were really tough. Nothing like too crazy happened. No one threw punches or anything like that. So like I feel like it was the perfect way of like, okay, you punked us, but at the same time, like you're not gonna get to punk us twice without it turning into something it didn't need to turn into. And to me, that's what makes rivalries great, where it's like cooler heads can still prevail, but at the same time, like we don't need to respect everything you do. Now, I will say this: Dusty can't do this every year because clearly this was premeditated,
It was intentional.
all the way down to the quote at the end, which the quote is still phenomenal. But he said that in front of his mirror a few times the night before. Like, let's be
So you
honest.
think this man, just so I have this straight, you think my head coach, Dustin H. May, you think he manifested this exchange, this moment, told his team to do it, knew what he was going to say in the post game, knew he was going to go viral, and that all comes from a place of coming into this game knowing you're going to get blown out?
No, so I think he thought they were going to win, of course, but I think the actions at half court,
They don't
plus
kiss the logo if Michigan's winning though. So if
oh,
this if he's saying this quote in front of the mirror, that inherently implies, all right, we're getting dogged, but this is
yeah,
what we're gonna respond with.
yeah, I didn't think about that part. That's tough.
Because
That's tough.
but Dion, not to, you'll have to hear the full video if you want my full thoughts on it. But like, I am not happy with the way Dusty handled himself here. So it's refreshing for me to hear someone from outside of the rivalry say, "Oh, this should actually like galvanize you," and I'm in on Dusty because I couldn't be more out on Dusty after the way this went down.
The part where he had to premeditate losing's tough. Not gonna lie, that part's tough. But everything else, like I'm all in on the rest. Maybe it was premeditated with like the under six or the under four timeout, where it's like, yo, if they try to do this, like, hey, stand at the logo, and he kind of knew what he was gonna say post game type of deal. Because the quote, I mean, that the quote is definitely something he knew he was gonna say. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like you could just tell by the way he said it. Like he said it with such confidence. That's why I loved it. It was very much so like John Calipari had a quote that I'm now putting in my bag of tricks moving forward too. That was also very clearly premeditated. They asked him about his team, and he said, "They put us in a coffin, but they forgot to put the nails in." Loved it.
It's a
Loved it.
bar.
It was a
It's a
bar.
bar.
Like
Yeah.
what Dusty May said is equally a bar to what Calipari said. It's like, oh, I didn't know. Like, there's a tradition to where you can't stand at half court during a free throw. I didn't know that one. Where's that tradition at? Like, I no, like it was clearly like there was something he knew he was going to say. Maybe he thought about it on the walk to the press conference. I don't know just how premeditated it was, but like he went in knowing what he was going to say a little bit. Um, and it was special. You can't do this every year, but year one of the rivalry, I think it's safe to say both teams like overachieved. Like Michigan State obviously overachieved a little bit more, but like these were the two best teams in the Big Ten throughout the regular season. Obviously, Michigan State had a great comeback against Iowa that took a little luster away from this game, but nonetheless, like it could have came down to this game. I mean, this was for my Big Ten title personally. Like it was for my individual Big Ten title. Maybe Dusty knew that the Dion Big Ten title was on the line yesterday. I mean, it was a little bit more fired up, but like you 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 can't do it every year, but year one where it's like, nah, like we got to establish a little bad blood here. Like it can't just be hugs, handshakes, pounds in a rivalry. Like I need the two teams in a rivalry not to necessarily like each other. And in college basketball, with how much turnover there is in general, but then you mix in the portal and NIL, it's got to be between the coaches. And very clearly, Izzo and Dusty May don't really like each other. Um, we did a video after the first game where we both discussed like Izzo's feeling out Dusty May before he like kind of decides how it's going to go. The feeling out process is over because Dusty hit him with a right hook after the game, and Izzo came back with an uppercut and said, "Trey Holloman, where are you? They're not going to
Yeah.
disrespect our tradition." I love the back and forth between both, to be honest. Like I said, it can't happen every year, but for year one, I think Dusty did exactly what he should have done.
I do think it was the right moment in time for there to be something like this that happened that isn't like completely unacceptable. Like this, I don't know, it's a new chapter. We didn't know where this is going. Now let's all put our cards on the table. Dusty May hates Michigan State. Michigan State does not like Dusty May anymore. Not that they did coming in, but like it is okay for us to all hate each other. That's what this moment was. And yeah, okay. I'm happy I got your outsider perspective because Car and I obviously are going to come in very biased on the way that we frame these events. So as an unbiased partisan, you don't think anyone was in the wrong? Is that what I'm hearing you from? Like Michigan State responded the way they should have, and Michigan doing the action in the first place, you're okay with?
There's a couple people that I think are in the wrong. The three
Oh,
Michigan players that stood at the free throw line. You're down by 20. Stand at half court with your
you
teammates.
think the whole well, one of them was shooting the free throw.
Okay, well then the two that weren't shooting.
You think Michigan should have had four guys on the logo in a banded together FU movement?
Holding arms. Holding arms. But I will say you you could only do that in year one though. If year two Dusty does this, I'm like, okay, so he chose to get punked last year, lose the Big Ten, and then for a year thought about what I'll do, and then does it. Year one is the only time you can get away with it because you're establishing the rivalry. Because it's a new era. You're establishing like, hey, like I still don't like y'all. I'm wearing Michigan blue. This means something to me.
Sure. Okay. So, I and now that I'm talking this through with you, I have a new interpretation of this. So I've been trying to think. I was disappointed with how Dusty handled this. Again, you heard all my thoughts on the other one. Um, how can Dusty like right the ship for me going forward? I have an idea. So, as you mentioned, he can't do this again next year. Here's my idea. Dusty needs to beat Michigan State in Chrysler next year, and he needs to unveil a new tradition when they beat Michigan State that is as lengthy and obnoxious as taking 20 minutes in the final 30 seconds of a game. And when people try and call him out on it, he needs to sit there and be like, well, it's our tradition. This is what I plan to do for 30 years going forward.
It, no, I think you're exact. What he should do is just the exact same thing. Oh, like we
Literally
beat you.
just kiss the M.
Kiss them. He should just do the exact same thing. If honestly, the only thing he could have done that would have got me more fired up if I was a Michigan fan to back this guy is if they were winning this game and they did the kiss the logo on the way back to the bench. That's the only thing he could have done where I'm like, I love this dude more than I do right now. But like, I just this is what college sports are made of. There's so
Dude.
many traditions in college sports and you as a rival, like your goal should be to mess up those traditions a little bit. You would have preferred to do it in the manner of winning, of course. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like I compare it to Duke, North Carolina. If North Carolina beats Duke on the road and doesn't get into it with the Cameron Crazies a little bit, did you really beat Duke on the road? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there has to be some back and forth in this stuff. Like the most special rivalry moments involve some sort of like disrespect from the other team a little bit.
Yeah. You can't have a rivalry without that. And
Yeah.
now I like want to make a slideshow of all of the funny ways this could go for. Because now imagine if Michigan wins at Breslin in the future, and like I don't even know that. Like let's just use Kaysen again. Say Kaysen gets down on a knee and kisses the logo after beating Michigan State. At that point, I think he'd actually get killed. If he got down and tried to kiss the logo after this, like a couple years from now, like benches would clear and actual fists would be thrown.
It was Kaysen and Fat Fat that were standing at the
Kaysen
logo,
and
right?
Fat Fat. Yeah.
You can't tell me Dusty didn't plan that with those two standing at the logo. Like, there's no two dudes on Michigan that are better to stand at that logo than those two. Maybe the only exception would be I wouldn't have mind having Vlad at the logo as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, shouldn't it have been Vlad and Danny?
No, because Danny would move
Danny
respectfully.
be scared, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, Trey Holloman walks up and Danny's like, "My bad, dude. Do you want to kiss this spot of the logo? Like, let me clean it for you a little bit."
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that you got so much enjoyment out of this, Dion. You got more.
One last thing Dusty has to do. If we get this matchup in the Big Ten final, we got to kiss the half court logo on the way out if we're winning the game.
In the
Got
Big Ten tournament final.
Yeah. Like if we get the rematch, like Big Ten tourneys on the line, Dusty has to do a little something. A little
So
something.
isn't the issue this though? this Michigan team could play this Michigan State team 100 times in 100 different venues, and they would win maybe two of them.
Well, if you're a state fan, yeah, I mean that's probably true. That's the tough part. But if you're a state fan, like flip it, that should galvanize you. We're so much better that they had to disrespect our tradition. This should be a coming together moment for both teams, in my opinion. Where it's like if you're Michigan, it's like, hey, this it's us against the world, and we just went against Michigan State and like however many people fit in that arena. And we did something to where everybody hated us and they all wanted to shoot like bow and arrows at us, like from back in the day. And if you're Michigan State, it's like, yo, we're so good that the only way that they could beat us is by doing some antics. Like, let's galvanize together. Let's circle up. Let's go win a national title. And that'll really mess up Michigan. I think both teams should come together from this moment. And at the end of the day, that's what makes rivalry special is amidst all the chaos, you come out on the other side and you come out together, like Ohio State and Michigan, right? Amidst all that chaos, that brought Ohio State together and they went on a run.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. I do think, like, if I had to envision all of my funny thoughts aside on what would Michigan do, if these two teams play again, here's how I see it playing out. Michigan State would win by roughly 27 to 30 points. And even since it would be on a neutral, they obviously wouldn't be kissing the logo. But I can bet you anything that this would happen. In the final 4 minutes, Tom Izzo would take timeouts. He would take as many possible ways to extend this game as possible and make the final 4 minutes take as long as humanly possible, which is what he should do, by the way. Michigan State, I still think, has perfectly fine complaints about all of this. Even if you like what Michigan did, Michigan State is the side to be on right now because they are the team winning these games by 20. They are the team who gets to frame pictures of Trey Holloman fighting two Wolverines to stand for what they believe in. None of this looks bad from a Michigan State side. You can just debate whether or not the Michigan side is acceptable or not.
And that's what makes it special to me is I don't think you leave like upset like too bad at anybody where it's like you can leave spinning it in your favor if you're Michigan, you can leave spinning it in your favor if you're Michigan State. And I think that's what makes it special. Like that's what rivalries are made of. Rivalries are made of bad blood and coming out the other side like, okay, that was a very intense, fun game, but at the end of the day, like it's just a rivalry. Like there was so many moments in the Cavs Warriors finals where it's like people did stuff to each other and it's like, that probably wasn't okay. But at the same time, like, let's rock. That's what these rivalries are made of. And I feel like that was this moment, like, not the greatest idea to disrespect their tradition like that. But at the same time, let's rock. Like, let's figure it out. If I'm Michigan State, by the way, we play in the Big Ten tournament final. Don't they do the logos on the end of the court for like each school, right? Like in the Big Ten.
I'm not sure
Um,
what the court is this year. Yeah, I don't know.
free, free tip. Referees are waiting on us. Everyone on the roster slowly walks over to kiss the Michigan State logo on the way to the tip off. I'm making Vlad Golden stand in the middle for 10 minutes before we tip that ball off.
So
Like,
you're just consulting both sides on how to
yeah,
double and triple down, be more petty.
yeah, because you only have 1 year to do this. Like going into you only got 1 year to do this. So we got to get as much out as we can this year. I feel like because next year we got to be on to something else to where we get under each other's skin. But like Izzo 100, it's like you said, Izzo's gonna have a response of some sort. Like it's not like Dusty just gets to get away with this. And I think that's what makes it so much fun is like this was round one. I'm excited for round two. The training wheels are off. Like the kid gloves that Izzo came with in the first game are off. Like let's throw some haymakers at each other. Let's have fun. Um, I can't think of at the moment how many rivalries in sports are better than this.
I mean, I would feel better about this rivalry if it was competitive right now. That's the number one thing I would say. But
The best thing about rivalries though is both teams don't need to be competitive for the rivalry to be fun. And I think that's what Dusty just established is like no matter what's going on between these two programs, we're gonna get after
let me just make it clear, I'm not having fun.
it.
I'm glad you found this whole thing fun. I know Michigan State fans have found it fun. I am having no fun right now. And I'm looking at you, Dusty. Let me have fun again, for the love of God.